ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. It is certainly my honor and privilege to be here this morning here in America, this evening here in Bangalore. I want to really offer my gratitude to the Whitefield congregation devotees headed by Harikshetra Prabhu and others. Thank you, Kartikeya Prabhu, for kindly coordinating and inviting me very lovingly for this session. I've been told that the congregation is having a 64-round chanting marathon tomorrow, that is Sunday, and we would like to have a boost to our Krishna conscious morale so that we can chant better tomorrow and also have the spirit of serving Krishna on the path of devotional service with a very favorable mindset for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. I don't know how many more devotees are joining and from which part of India or part of the world, but I want to offer my obeisances to each one of you for kindly taking time and participating in this discussion. If there is anything that is motivating and inspiring through this session, then it is certainly the repetition of the authentic words of the Acharyas. And if there is something that is not falling in place, if there are mistakes or drawbacks, or if there are shortcomings or improvements, then they are definitely for my benefit. You can kindly let me know through Harikshetra Prabhu if there are any mistakes that I have to work on. If on the basis of Siddhanta, Shastra, or presentation, or the flow, or whatever it may be, you can kindly let me know so that next time when the same topic is being served, I can try my best not to repeat the same mistakes. So we have a very interesting topic today, and that is the holy name of Krishna. So to hear little about the holy name of Krishna, we would like to rewind little. We will take you to Dwapar Yuga, and very specifically to the section where Krishna is speaking to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So the Bhagavad Gita has been spoken by Krishna. Adi Shankaracharya in his Bhagavad Mahatmya explains, Gita adhyayana shilasya pranayama parasya cha naiva santihi papani purvajanma kritani cha. If someone studies the Bhagavad Gita, then all the sins, all the karmic reactions from past life are all burnt to ashes. Then he says, Maline mochanam pumsam jalasnanam dine dine sakrit gitamrita snanam samsara malanashanam. That just like by using soap and water, we can bathe our body, right? Maline mochanam pumsam jalasnanam dine dine. A man can cleanse his body by taking snan, bath every day with soap and water. But the body gets cleansed, but what about the mind or the consciousness? So Shankaracharya in his Gita Mahatmya, he says, Sakrit Gita Amrita Snanam Samsara Malanashanam. Similarly, if we bathe in the soap water, the nectarian soap water of instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, then the consciousness or the mind gets cleansed. Then Adi Shankaracharya says, this Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all the Vedic Upanishad and other texts. He says that Sarva Upanishado Gavo Dogda Gopal Nandana Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdha Gitamritam Mahat. He says all the Upanishads are like cows. And the person who's milking these Upanishads, Dogda, is Krishna. So 108 Upanishads are like cows. They're all standing. And Krishna is the milker. He's milking all these cows. But who's the first calf who goes to drink? That is Arjuna. Partho Vatsaha. But then what is the milk coming out? The essence of all these cows. Then that is Dugdha Gitamritam Mahat. This Gita, Bhagavad Gita, is the Dugdam, is the condensed milk, the essence of all the cows. So all the Upanishads being cows, Arjuna being the calf, Krishna being the milker, the milk is Bhagavad Gita. Ekam Shastram Devaki Putra Gitam, Eko Devo Devaki Putra Eva, Eko Mantras Tasya Namani Yani, Karma Api Ekam Tasya Devasya Seva. Then it's Ekam Shastram. Of all the Shastras, if one Shastra has to be picked, Devaki Putra Gitam, the Bhagavad Gita must be picked. And Eko Devo, if one person has to be picked, Devaki Putra Eva, one should pick the son of Devaki, who is Krishna. And Eko Mantra, if one has to pick one mantra, then it must be Krishna's holy name. And if one has to pick one activity, Karma Api Ekam Tasya Devasya Seva, one should pick the service of Krishna. Kim Anyai Shastra Vistaraihi? What is the need for any other Shastra if Bhagavad Gita is there? Adi Shankaracharya is asking. Ya Swayam Padmanabhasya Mukha Padma Vinisrataha. That which has come from the lips of God, Bhagavan Shri Krishna. What other Shastra is there for Praman? So in this way we see so many beautiful verses are there glorifying the Bhagavad Gita, and how by studying the Bhagavad Gita we will make rapid advancement in Krishna consciousness. Any philosopher who wants to prove his philosophical profess, or let's say his prowess, or let's say his intellectual ability, analytical mindset, his ability to give the world something philosophically profound, then he writes a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. He writes a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita and then tries to show everyone how he is an erudite scholar, or he's adept in that subject matter. So this Bhagavad Gita is the essence of everything. Adi Shankaracharya in another text, he says, Gita Geyam Nama Sahasram Dhyayam Shripati Rupam Ajashram. That if one can study the Bhagavad Gita, Gita Geyam, one can sing the Bhagavad Gita and Nama Sahasram and chant the names of Krishna and Dhyayam, and in his mind remember the form of Krishna, Dhyayam Shripati Rupam Ajashram, then one gets liberated very quickly. Bhagavad Gita Kinjada Dhita Ganga Jalalava Kanika Pita Sakrad Eva Murari Samarcha Kriyate Tasya Nayamena Charcha. Again Adi Shankaracharya quoting the glories of the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Bhagavad Gita Kinjida Dhita, if one meditates little on the Bhagavad Gita. You see the word Dhita, Dhi means intellect, and Kinjit means little. So Bhagavad Gita Kinjida Dhita. So either he meditates little on the whole Bhagavad Gita, or he meditates completely on one verse of the Bhagavad Gita. So the Kinjit can go either with the verse of the Gita or with one's meditative mindset. So Bhagavad Gita Kinjida Dhita. If one meditates on the Bhagavad Gita even little, and Ganga Jalalava Kanika Pita, and drinks the Charanamrita, Ganga Jala, every day, and Sakradeva Murari Samarcha, and worships the deity of Krishna at least once every day, Kriyate Tasya Na Yamena Charcha. He's not saying you will get love of Godhead, but he says, Kriyate Tasya Na Yamena Charcha. Yamaraj will not have any conversation with such a person, which means that person will never go to hell. So after hearing so much glories of the Bhagavad Gita, it's important to note that who spoke the Bhagavad Gita? This Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna as Dwarkadish, as the king of Dwarka, as the ruler of Dwarka. And who is hearing this Bhagavad Gita? It is heard by Arjuna, who's a resident of Hastinapur. So the speaker is the king of Dwarka, Krishna, and the listener is the resident of Hastinapur, Arjuna. So this is the listener, this is the Pravakta Vaishishtya, the speciality of the speaker, and this is Shrota Vaishishtya, the speciality of the hearer, listener. And what emanates between them is the 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Where was this spoken? It was spoken on a battlefield. And what were the contents of the Bhagavad Gita? There were different paths like Dhyana Marg, Karma Marg, Bhakti Marg, etc. Different paths have been discussed and outlined very clearly in the Bhagavad Gita. So this is to one side of the story. On the other side of the story is an interesting aspect. It is described Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanura Mardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. It has been discussed that Krishna is Vasudeva Sutam Devam. He is the son of Vasudeva. And Kamsa Chanura Mardhanam. He is the killer of Kamsa and Chanur. And Devaki Paramanandam. He gives supreme joy and happiness to Devaki. And he is Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. He is the preceptor, the guru of the whole creation. But now here is an interesting aspect. We have established that the Bhagavad Gita is potent philosophically and spiritually. We have established who the speaker is, who's the listener, how expansive the Bhagavad Gita is, what are the contents, where it was spoken, etc. We have also mentioned of the fact about this specific text of the Bhagavad Gita, how in this text of the Bhagavad Gita, very specifically, because different paths have been discussed, Bhakti is not the exclusive topic. There are 6 chapters for karma, 6 chapters for jnana, and 6 chapters for bhakti. But however, the speaker is Jagat Guru. He is the guru for the whole creation. But what is the quality of a Jagat Guru? Prabhupada explains an Acharya is he who has Acharan, which means he's not just professing, he's not just giving discourses and sermons. That's not an Acharya. Well, that's one aspect of the Acharya. But the Acharya actually means Acharana, he who teaches through his practice. He who walks the talk is an Acharya on the spiritual front. He who teaches everyone by personal example is an Acharya. So now Krishna has made all these lofty points in the Bhagavad Gita that you serve me, surrender unto me, think of me, become my devotee, perform bhakti to me, give me fruit, flower, leaf, so and so forth, and offer everything. Yat karoshi yad ashnasi, give everything to me, offer obeisances unto me, perform bhakti to me, ananyas chintayanto mam, constantly think of me, satatam kirtayanto mam, constantly do my kirtan. And in so many verses, Krishna has mentioned all these instructive points. But the point to be noted is the Jagat Guru of the whole creation, Sri Krishna, who's speaking, he's making all these points, but he has no practical acharana. He has no practical experience of going through the motions of devotion. So that's a fault in the Jagat Guru, isn't it? You have to preach what you're practicing, or at least you have to practice what you're preaching. So Krishna thought, I haven't practiced what I have preached, but I have preached first. So now is the time for me to practice and stand the position of a Jagat Guru, because then I can show the world that I am practicing what I am preaching. Chaitanya Charitamrita describes, Apani na kaila dharma shikhai na jai, ei to siddhanta Gita Bhagavata gai. That Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam have sung this truth, that apani na kaila dharma, something that we are not practicing, shikhai na jai. One has no right to preach. Apani karimu bhakta bhave angikare, apani achari bhakti shikhamu shavare. Therefore, Krishna thought, I have never practiced bhakti myself. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra to Arjuna, I said, yes, become a devotee, worship me, think of me, offer obeisances to me. But Krishna is thinking, I have never given my mind to myself. I have never worshipped myself. I have never become devotee of myself. I have never offered obeisances to myself. Ananyas chintayanto mam. I have not thought of myself in an undeviated, undeterred manner. Satatam kirtayanto mam. I have not chanted my own holy names. So in this way, I have said things which I have not practiced. So therefore now, so that it proves to the world that I am a proper teacher, I must come down again in Kali Yuga and practice all that I have preached. Because apani na kaila dharma shikhai na jai. Kaviraj Goswami says one has no right to preach things that one has not practiced. Therefore, Krishna thought, Apani bhakti karimu, bhakta bhave angikare. Now I will take the mood of devotion and become a devotee. Apani achari shikhamu shabare. I will practice and teach everyone how bhakti has to be performed. So therefore, Krishna became Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and appeared in Kali Yuga. So this is one of the many reasons why Gauranga came, but this is the focus for the beginning portion of our class. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, and he came to realize the mood of pure devotion of Srimati Radharani. So he appeared, and first few years he had this scholastic approach of breaking down all arguments as Nimai Pandit. It is described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat and the Chaitanya Charitamrita that how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Nimai Pandit was breaking down very erudite scholars. And in the school of Gangadas Pandit, he would challenge the students. In fact, in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, very specifically in the Adi Khanda, it is described that Nimai Pandit would go from one bathing ghat of the Ganga to another. And in every bathing ghat, there used to be students of different teachers. And Nimai Pandit would go there and challenge all of them that what has your teacher taught you? Now I will teach you. And he would break down their arguments. And then when they would be satisfied, they would say, oh yes, we agree to what you're saying. Then he would set the flaws in his thought process and break his own argument and do this back and forth, and they would be completely perplexed and flummoxed. Then after they accept defeat, he would go to the another bathing ghat, and in this way Nimai Pandit would spend his time. Going ahead, fast forward in the same pastime, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then takes Diksha from Ishwarapuri Pad in Gaya, and then he chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And once he starts chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, he tells Ishwarapuri, Kiba mantra dila goshai, kiba tarabal, japite japite mantra karila pagal. What kind of mantra have you given me? And kiba tarabal, what is its potency? Japite japite, the more I chant this mantra, mantra karila pagal, my mind is going crazy. So Ishwarapuri said, oh, that's the effect of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That upajaya bhav, it is just spontaneous. That love of Godhead will rise in the heart if you chant the holy name. Then Mahaprabhu started doing day and night Sankirtan. Eventually he takes sannyas from Keshav Bharati Maharaj, leaves his grihastha life, his old mother Shachi Mata and young wife Vishnu Priya Devi. And he, at the age of 24 at Katwa, he takes sannyas from Keshav Bharati Maharaj. Now he starts traveling for 6 years from the age of 24 to 30, goes around so many places, meets Ramananda Rai on the banks of the Godavari, and has such detailed, elaborate philosophical discussions, which is the backbone of the Gaudiya Siddhanta. And after that, lives for 18 years in Jagannath Puri. Now in Jagannath Puri, the ecstatic dancing of Mahaprabhu in the Rath Yatra has been described by Kaviraj Goswami. And finally in the Anta Leela, the last chapter of the Anta Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, it discusses how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would erupt in madness in feelings of love for Krishna. So Krishna, who had theoretically spoken in the Bhagavad Gita, has now realized and is practically walking the talk as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now after realizing this extreme high level of devotion, in the Gambhira, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would hear the songs of Jayadev Goswami's Gita Govinda. He would hear Bilva Mangala Thakur's Krishna Karanamrita. He would hear Chandidas and Vidyapati's songs glorifying Radha and Krishna. And this he would hear in whose assembly, whose presence? He would hear it in the presence of Swarup Damodar and Rai Ramananda. And after all of this nourishment to the heart and practice of very ecstatic practice of devotional service and living in the Dham, Nilachala Dham, after taking initiation, after taking sannyas, after having conversations with Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Ramananda Rai, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Prakashananda Saraswati, all of these conversations. Then finally what erupts from the lotus mouth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are the 8 verses of Shikshashtakam. So let's put Bhagavad Gita of Krishna on one side of the weighing scale and the Shikshashtakam of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the other side of the weighing scale. Actually, technically, if you see, they are equal because they're both coming from the lips of God. But let's analyze to see which is heavier. This is an interesting analysis. The Bhagavad Gita on one side is spoken. Who is the speaker? It's spoken by Dwarkadish Krishna, who is the king of Dwarka. But this Bhagavad Gita, this Shikshashtakam is not spoken by the king of Dwarka, Krishna. It's not even spoken by Krishna in Vrindavan, but it is spoken by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna in Vrindavan after relishing Radharani's ecstatic love of devotion, which means Krishna on his highest extent. Krishna in Dwarka, higher in bhav is Krishna in Mathura, higher in satisfaction and beauty and sweetness is Krishna in Vrindavan. And in that also Krishna is most beautiful in the presence of the gopis, even higher in the presence of Radharani. And then the most highest position of Krishna is when he realizes the bhav of Radharani completely as Shachinandan Gaurahari. So on one side, Krishna in Dwarka as the king is speaking, and on the other side, Krishna in his most complete, satisfied, perfected form as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking. Who is listening the Bhagavad Gita? A resident of Hastinapur, an eternal associate of Krishna as Arjuna is listening. But who is listening the Shikshashtakam? Lalita and Vishakha from the groves of Vrindavan come as Swarup Damodar and Rai Ramananda, according to the Gaur Ganodesh Deepika of Kavi Karanapur. So the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita and the speaker of Shikshashtakam, well, the speaker of Shikshashtakam goes heavier in bhav and realization. The listener of the Bhagavad Gita and the listener of the Shikshashtakam, well, the listener of the Shikshashtakam goes deeper because this is Arjuna, well, this is Lalita and Vishakha in the groves of Vrindavan coming as Swarupa and Ramananda Rai. Okay, now let's discuss the places. This is Kurukshetra battlefield. And these are the closed doors of the Gambhira in Jagannath Puri, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is smearing blood all over the walls in an attempt to see Krishna. He finds Krishna in some wall and he runs to get Krishna. Kaha mura prananath murali vadan, kaha jaun kaha paum Vrajendra Nandan. Oh, where is Krishna, the flute player of Vrindavan? Kaha mura prananath, the Lord of my life, the player of the flute. And kaha jaun kaha paum, where should I go and how should I find Krishna? Kaha jaun kaha paum Vrajendra Nandan, the son of Nanda Maharaj. Madhuram madhuram vapurasya vibho, madhuram madhuram vadanam madhuram, madhugandhi mridusmitam etadaho, madhuram 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 madhuram. Sripad Bilva Mangala Thakur says, Krishna playing the flute in a threefold bending form is the abode of all sweetness. But more sweetness than his form is the face. But more sweetness than his face is his very sweet little honey-laden smile and fragrance coming from his mouth. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would see Krishna on the walls and he would jump to grab, but it was just the wall. So he would smear blood all over his face, the blood from his face on the wall. So in this way, the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita, the speaker of Shikshashtakam has been analyzed. The listener of the Bhagavad Gita, the listener of the Shikshashtakam has been analyzed. The places have been analyzed. Gambhira in the Jagannath Puri lies way heavier than Kurukshetra, which is a battlefield. Also now the fourth point. This is 700 verses, which is the essence of everything. Mahaprabhu lovingly has boiled that down to the essence of 8 verses. So that's more accessible. Contents. The contents of the Bhagavad Gita are far spread from Karma Marg to Gyan Marg with Bhakti interspaced in the middle. But the Shikshashtakam, all 8 verses, are only nailed completely towards the topic of the holy name. So this holy name of Krishna is what emanates from the lip of Krishna after he has realized the love of Radharani. When we ask Krishna, you spoke everything in the Bhagavad Gita, but when you realized it, you did all the arguments as Nimai Pandit, you took Diksha, you did Kirtan and Bhajan, you took Sannyas, you traveled, you had conversations, and then you were in Jagannath Puri, you heard the songs of great acharyas, you associated with Ramananda Rai Swarup Damodar, then you erupted in ecstasy and spoke the Shikshashtakam. What do you realize at the end of the Shikshashtakam? Mahaprabhu says, Sri Chaitanya Mukhodgirnam Hare Krishna iti varnakam majjayanto jagat preme. Rup Goswami says that, and Jeev Goswami of course quotes this, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu drowned the world with his 8 verses of the Shikshashtakam. as the Hare Krishna Mahamantra emanated from his lotus lips. So the point we are making is, the Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of everything, when it is practiced by Bhagavan to the highest level in Kali Yuga as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then what comes out of his lips is the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which means the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of the Upanishads, which is the essence of all that has to be known. So one is chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Then all Vedic knowledge will rise in the heart. This is not a theoretical point. There are tests to understand this. This Hare Krishna Mahamantra, even if someone is sitting in closed doors and chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra for 10 years, and you take him out, and you ask him philosophical questions, he may not have read anything in the Shastra, but just by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, what happens is, the purification of the consciousness takes place. And then the orientation continues. The living being who is oriented in the material realm to find happiness outside, the holy name reorients the consciousness. And now he goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper in his happiness pursuit within. When you ask him questions, he may not be able to quote which book and which commentary and which verse and which song, etc., because he's not read it. But he will start saying his realizations. And when you check with the Shastra, his realizations are matching with the Shastra. Why? Because Harinam is the essence of everything. By just chanting the holy name, the Shikshashtakam says, Vidya Vadhu Jivanam. Vidya means transcendental knowledge. And Vadhu Jivanam. Just like a chaste wife follows her husband. She may not have so much knowledge as the husband, but just the husband follows and the wife follows with him, and she gets the same destination, sometimes even better destination. Similarly, holy name is like the husband, and the knowledge of all Shastra is the wife. So as the husband of the holy name is received, the wife of transcendental knowledge follows. Just like Narayana is received, Lakshmi follows. But if you run behind Lakshmi or Saraswati, it's very difficult to catch. But if you hold Narayana in the heart, Lakshmi and Saraswati will follow. So therefore, the holy name of Krishna, it is a known fact that by chanting, all purification takes place. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he had not studied anything. He did not even know how to read and write his own name. He couldn't write, he couldn't read. He had not studied any Shastra. He couldn't read anything, he couldn't write anything. Because, materially speaking, he was not very literate. But Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was given the title of Siddhanta when he was less than 10 years old, because he was perfect. He was given the title Saraswati, Siddhanta Saraswati. He is Saraswati, he is the knower of Siddhanta, all perfect conclusions of all that has to be known. So he who was the epitome of learning as far as astrology is concerned, astronomy is concerned, physics, mathematics, Saraswati Thakur was like a total blowing encyclopedia in his consciousness. But when he met Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he fell at the feet of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj and rolled in the dust, begging for Diksha. Now, if you see their contrast as far as learning is concerned, what is the thing that convinces Saraswati Thakur to take Diksha from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj? Saraswati Thakur explains, when I ask questions to my Gurudev, he has such elaborate answers on the basis of Shastra. Where is Gaur Kishore Das Babaji getting all this from? He's getting it from the holy name. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji used to chant 2 lakh every day, which is 128 rounds of japa every day. And as a result of which, all the knowledge that had to be known was in the heart of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. So any question asked, the holy name would answer, because he was chanting so much. If you just chant little and you leave, there is no experience of transcendental knowledge. But when one is chanting very high number for quite some time, then all that's going through his body, the current that's going through his body is Harinam, 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 the name of Krishna, the name of Ram, the name of Hari. And by chanting all the right answers, the consciousness is so fine-tuned that all the right answers according to Shastra comes. In traditional sense, when we are not so purified, one reads the Shastras and gives answers. But in a very purified state, one will speak and use the Shastra to confirm his realization by chanting the holy name. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very impressed. He in fact said, he said a very immortal statement, very, very interesting statement. Saraswati Thakur said, if I would have seen my Gurudev being engaged in serving his own body for even 1 second, I wouldn't have taken Diksha from him. He said, if I would have seen my Gurudev being absorbed in Hari Bhajan for 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds every day, still I wouldn't have taken Diksha, which means he's keeping 1 second for himself. But he said, what to do? My Gurudev did not give me that chance because 24 hours, not 23 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds, but 24 hours every day, he was continuously chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this is the power potency of Harinam. By chanting Harinam, everything is possible. So here in the Kali Santarana Upanishad, I have a very interesting section to read with respect to what is coming up as the Japa Marathon. So this is the Kali Santarana Upanishad chapter 1 text 1 onwards up to text 11, but I will just read a few sections. After traveling all over the world, Srila Narada Muni approached his father and his Gurudev, Lord Brahma, during the time when Dwapar Yuga was about to end. He asked him, O Lord, how will all the living entities be able to deliver themselves from the most degraded age of Kali, which is about to begin? So basically, Narada Muni, as the disciple and the son of Brahma, is asking his father and Guru, what is the best way for deliverance in Kali Yuga? Brahma replied, Sadhu Prishtosmi Sarvashruti Rahasyam Gopyam Tatshrunu Yena Kali Samsaram Tarishyasi Bhagavata Adi Purushasya Narayanasya Nama Ucharana Matrena Nirdhata Kali Bhavati Narada Punaha Prapacha Tan Nam Kim Iti Sa Uvacha Hiranyagarbhaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Rama Hare Hare Iti Shodashakam Nam Kali Kalmasha Nashanam Nata Paratarupaya Sarvavedeshu Drishyate इति षोडश कलस्य जीवस्य वर्ण विनाशनम तत प्रकाशते पर ब्रह्म मेधापये रवि रश्मि मंडली वा इति पुनर्नारद प्रपच्छ भगवान कस्य विधि इति तम उवाच नस्य विधि इति सर्वदा शुचि अशुचि वा पठन ब्रह्मणं सालोक्य सामीप्य सारूप्य सायुज्यतम इति यदस्य षोडिकस्य स अर्ध त्रिकोटि जपति तदा ब्रह्महत्यां तरति वीरहत्यां स्वर्णस्तेयं पूतो भवति पितृदेव मनुष्याणां अपकरत पूतो भवति. So I'm reading the original Sanskrit so that we are completely convinced of the authenticity of what we are speaking. So here, when Narad Muni asked Brahma, Brahma said, Sadhu, you have asked the right question. Sadhu Prishtoyam, you have asked the right question. Sarvashruti Rahasyam Gopyam Tatshrunu. Please listen to what is the essence, Rahasyam and Gopyam, which is hidden in all the scriptures. Yena Kali Samsaram Tarishyasi, by which you can cross over Kali Yuga. Bhagavata Adi Purushasya Narayanasya Nama Ucharana Matrena Nirdhuta Kalir Bhavati. Kali can be completely driven away just by chanting the holy names of the Supreme Lord. Then Narada Puna Prapricha. Narada again asked, Tan Nama Kim Iti? Oh, what is that name that you have mentioned? Which name of God that we should chant? To which Hiranyagarbha or Brahma explained, Iti Shodashakam Namnam Kali Kalmashanashnam. These 16 names must be chanted. Shodashakam Namnam. 16 names. By which Kali Kalmashanashanam, by which all the ill effects of Kali can be driven away. And nataha paratara upaya. There is no upaya, there is no way paratara, better than this. Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. I have seen through all the Vedas. Brahma said, through 4 heads, through 4 brains, through 4 mouths, I have studied and recited the 4 Vedas. And Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. I have scrutinizingly seen through all the Vedas. There is no fastest, quickest, surest, easiest way than chanting these 16 names. Which are those 16 names? Brahma is saying, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. These names of the Supreme Lord are to be chanted. It is interesting that sometimes we say that the original text has Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And then Mahaprabhu came and flipped it over and made it Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. But actually, if you see, that is not very true. The original text of the Kali Santarana Upanishad actually say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. There is no flip. It is just that some editions, it is described, some followers of Ramchandra, they got offended how the name of Krishna comes before the name of Ram. Therefore, they flipped it over and wrote in the original text, they just filled in that gap and wrote Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So by seeing those texts, we say that Mahaprabhu flipped it over. But actually, Mahaprabhu just presented the Shastra as it is. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not flip anything, because the same mantra has been quoted in the Ananta Samhita, it has been quoted in the Chaitanya Upanishad, the Atharva Veda, Agni Puran, Sanat Kumar Samhita, Vayu Puran. Everything starts with Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So to say that Mahaprabhu flipped from this version, some people may say, well, why would you have to flip? Why does an Acharya have to flip? So the answer is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Acharya Swarup is not flipping anything. He is presenting the original text as it is. It is the original. The Acharya is not changing anything. He is just giving Shastra as it is. We somehow hear sometimes some stories that Mahaprabhu flipped it, etc. So due respect to that, but Mahaprabhu actually gives everything without any alteration. He is giving the truth as it is. Okay, so now Narad Muni is asking Brahma, why these 16 names? So to which Brahma is saying, Iti Shodashaka Kalasya Jivasya Varana Vinashanam. Brahma is saying that the living entity, the soul, has 16 coverings around him. What are the 16 coverings? The 16 coverings that the soul has are the 5 karma indriyas, the 5 working senses. We have the hands, we have the legs, we have the vocal ability, the throat, by which we work, by which we speak, right? The hands, the legs, the throat, and then the private parts. These are the 5 karma indriyas, working senses in the body. Then you have the 5 jnana indriyas. What are the 5 knowledge acquiring senses? The eyes, by which we see shape, size, color. Nose, by which we get to know the fragrance or the stink. Tongue, by which we can taste. Ears, by which we can hear. And the sense of skin, the touch, by which we get to know what is hot, what is cold, what is soft, what is sharp, etc. So 5 karma indriyas, working senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, 5 jnana indriyas, karma indriyas, 5 plus 5, 10. The 11th is mind intelligence put together, the subtle covering. So that is 11. And then earth, water, fire, air, ether. So 5 plus 5, 10 plus 1, 11 plus 5, 16 coverings to the soul. Brahma is saying every soul is covered with 16 coverings. And by chanting these 16 names of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, it pierces through all these covering and the soul gets the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. In fact, in the Padma Puran, it has been described that anyone who chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Dwadasha Mantra Aksharam. Dwadasha means, Dwa means 2. Not Dwadasha, Dvatrimshat, sorry. Dwa means 2, Trimshat means 30. So Dvatrimshat Aksharam Mantram. This mantra, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, has 16 words. Shodasha. Nama Shodasha Kanvitam. Shodasha means 16. That is the Nam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. 4 times 4 is 16. But each of these names have 2 syllables. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Right? The complete pronunciation. Sometimes we can truncate it by saying Ram, which is also fine. But technically, Rama, Hare, Krishna. So 16 times 2 is 32. So Dvatrimshat Aksharam Mantram. This mantra with 32 syllables. And Mantra Shodashakanvitam. Names are 16, but the syllables are 32. Right? What happens? Prajapan Vaishnava Nityam. If a Vaishnava chants this mantra Nityam, constantly, right? Not just some mantra during the daytime or just early in the morning. Nityam, constantly. Then what happens? Please excuse me. Vyasadeva is saying, if someone chants these 16 names with 32 syllables very nicely, Parajapan, Vaishnavo Nityam, if a Vaishnava chants this constantly, Radha Krishna Sthalam Labhet, then he will get the abode of Radha and Krishna beyond the Vaikuntha Lokas. So beautiful. So therefore, these 16 names have significance because they tear open the 16 layers of the soul. So mind, intelligence, false ego is one layer of the subtle body. So in this way, 5 plus 5 plus 1 plus 5 is 16, and they are broken through. Also, Brahma is saying that by chanting this, it doesn't just break through the covering. Just like the sun breaks through the sky, through the clouds, and gives his full potency. Similarly, these names break through all the coverings, cleanse the heart, and give their potency in the form of revealing who that person is to Krishna. Narad Muni then asked, Punar Narada Prapracha. Then Narada again asked, Bhagavan Kasya Vidhi? Is there a Vidhi? Nishedaha Vidhi, do's and don'ts? Are there rules, regulations? Tam Nasya Vidhi Riti Sarvada Shuchi Ashuchi Va Pathan Brahmanam Salokya Samipya Sarupatam Sayujitam Iti. By chanting this mantra, in consideration of chanting this mantra, one should understand Brahma is saying there are no rules and regulations. Nasya vidhi, there are no vidhi. And sarvada pathan, one should chant this always, sarvada. Da means time, sarva means all the time. Shuchi ashuchiva, irrespective of whether one is pure or impure, morning or night, in the bathroom or outside. Bathed, not bathed. One should constantly chant the Hare Krishna. Doesn't have to be just on the beads. It could be just with the tongue, with counting on the fingers. Sometimes we are in the bathroom, we are under the shower, and we have soap all over our body, and we have to probably, or shampoo, or something like that. And we wait for some time. So our counting time is we very quickly chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra on our fingers. We count and then again go down, because we don't want to just put the soap and then wipe it down. We keep it for some time and then chant and then again clean. So that chanting will purify, because generally soap and water can cleanse, but it doesn't purify. But when we chant the holy name, even in the bathroom, it purifies. Now is an interesting question. Narad Muni is asking, how many times should one chant this mantra? Is it just once? How many times should one technically chant this mantra? Now, this is the icing on the cake of our discussion. Brahma is saying, Yadasya Shodikasya Sardha Trikoti Japati Tada Brahmahatyam Tarati Veerahatyam Swarnasteyam Puto Bhavati Pitrudeva Manushyanam Apakarat Puto Bhavati. If one chants this Mahamantra, Ardha Trikoti. 3 means 3, Koti means crore. 3 crore, Ardha, half. 3.5 crore times Japati. If one chants this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, complete Hare Krishna Mahamantra, 3.5 crore times in one life, then what happens? He absolves himself of the sins of killing a Brahmana or a Kshatriya, stealing of gold, engaging in sexual activity even with the wife of one's superiors, engaging in harmful activities towards living beings and forefathers, and all the sins included. So all the sins can be destroyed if one chants this Mahamantra 3.5 crore times in one life. Now let's do the math, okay? We go doing the math. We chant 16 rounds, right? And each round is 108 times. So 1728 times we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in our 16 rounds every day, because each round has 108 beads. So that's one mantra a bead 108 times, and 16 such rounds. So that comes to 1728 times the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is chanted. Now, if this is one day, okay? So you go times 365, which is for a year, you chant, and then you go 56 years, 56 times, and that comes to 3.5 crore Hare Krishna Mahamantras. Which means if we have to reach the target of 3.5 crore Hare Krishna Mahamantras in one life, then you have to chant 16 rounds every day for 56 years. That's right. 56 years of human life, you chant 16 rounds every day. Then you finish the target of 3.5 crore Hare Krishna Mahamantras. 55.5 or 56 technically, to be safe over the boundary. So what that means is, you have to chant 56 years to absolve of all karmic reactions. All the karma is broken to pieces. Then after that, when you continue chanting, ecstatic symptoms, hair will stand on end, tears will flow, and one will have separation mood. Now, how many of us have 56 years left? I don't think even I have 56 years left. We add in the 80s, 28 plus 56, you see. Even I don't have it. So what to speak of those older to me? You may not. But to speed up the process, let's half the number of years, which means if you have to finish it in 28 years, you have to double the chanting, which means you have to chant 32 rounds every day to finish this quota in 28 years, which is still possible. And if you really want to do it faster, then you chant 64 rounds, which you finish the whole karmic cycle in 14 years, which means now we are in 2020 by chanting 64 every day. By 2034, 14 years from now, 15 years from now, technically, let's say, to be on the safe side, by 2035, we have all of our karma broken and thrown into the trash can, completely disrupted by the chanting of the holy name. So what is stopping us? We are having these 64-round japa marathons. Why? To inspire us. You see, just like in school, the teacher will give you a head start. She will teach you a principle. Then you have to come home and practice it yourself. You have to do the homework. You have to do the assignments. Then in that way, we grasp what is being taught. If we just go to the school and don't do homework, we don't learn the subject matter really well. So in our centers and our temples, we have these 64-round japa marathons so that we take this principle to heart and practice in our life. Now think about it. Now is the perfect time to chant every day. Now, because of this COVID lockdown, all of our public programs have been put to a standstill. When we have public programs, we have temple programs, when we have congregation programs, home programs, all of these different preaching, book distribution activities, we are busy. So to chant 64 rounds may be difficult. But now look at the most beautiful, wonderful preparatory time of the COVID lockdown. All of our schools and colleges and work is work from home. You don't have to travel anywhere. You take all the meetings and everything from home. All spiritual activities are from home. We have no temple programs, no home programs, no congregation meeting, nothing. Which means no street harinam, no book distribution, no preaching programs in person. Of course, we do virtual preaching. But no cooking for the Sunday feast, no making of the garlands. There's nothing that we're doing. So what is going to happen is that by the time this coronavirus will pass and we come back to the temples, we'll all be slackened. We will be slackened because now we have lost our flow of service. Now because of this break, because of this lockdown, we have forgotten our spirit to serve and we are very sluggish and very lazy. But if during this lockdown period, which would be at least a month, I would believe from now, at least, some say even up to mid of June, so that means extra. So at least this 1 month as we are home, we can chant 64 every day. For two purposes. What's going to happen is, one, it will purify our heart in a very fast way. That's the best thing we can do right now. Second, when the temples open up, the congregation programs open up, we are so empowered with purity now to contribute for public. If we don't have purity within us, we can't give anything. You can't give something that you don't have. So point number one, chanting 64 during the lockdown period is the best utilization of this time. It gives us a hint of how much taste we have in the chanting of the holy name. It gives us a spirit of urgency to chant more and not just be relaxed. His Holiness Sachinandan Maharaj very famously states in his japa talks that the actual chanting starts from the 17th round. Because till 16 rounds, we are chanting because we have to. But 17th round onwards, we are chanting because we want to. So point number one, it gives us a taste of how much true taste we have. It gives us an estimate of how much taste we have in the chanting. Second, during this lockdown, it saves us from going into lazy state and sluggish procrastination state of just sleeping and eating and relaxing. Three, when the temples open up, we are more empowered to really inspire others, because we have pumped in so much Krishna consciousness in the form of the essence of everything, that is Harinam. Just by chanting Harinam, consciousness gets purified and everything happens. Fourth, and the most important thing, if we chant sincerely during this lockdown, chant more 64 or 32 during the lockdown, even when things open up and life continues regular as before, it's possible. We have got taste for chanting and we can go back. We will continue chanting and in that way continue to be purified. So this is wonderful. Sometimes we think, oh Prabhu, I'm not able to chant more because my job demands so much time. So if I change my job then to that job where only I have to work for so many hours a day, or I have very less commitment, oh, then I can chant more. Never happens like that. We are not chanting because of too much work. We are not chanting because of lack of taste. So we have to prove to Krishna, being in this circumstance right now, I am ready to chant more, Krishna. I am ready to chant more and more and more. And if you're convinced, you kindly change the circumstance. So Krishna will change the circumstance if he's convinced enough about our chanting. But by changing the circumstance, our taste is not going to increase. What's going to happen is that Krishna will change our circumstance. We will have more time in our hand, and now we will waste it because we have no taste in Krishna consciousness. We will just watch more television and more movie and read more gossip and talk more and waste our time because we have extra time. But now, being in this circumstance, if we chant more and prove to Krishna that I want to increase my taste, then Krishna, being impressed, he will change circumstance and give us more favorable time. Then in that time, we will chant more and utilize. So sometimes people may ask this question, Prabhu, you're saying 64 during this lockdown, that is good. But is there any scriptural praman for this? Is there any proof about this? So our best proof for any praman is Srila Prabhupada. So I want to read Prabhupada's take on chanting 64 every day. Srila Prabhupada, morning walk, 14th of May, 1975 in Perth, Australia. So the devotee is asking, okay, it's a question and answer on the morning walk. The devotee is asking, Srila Prabhupada, how can the position be reconciled if in Krishna consciousness, one of the two, the husband or the wife, wants to enjoy sense gratification, but the other does not? Should there be separation then? Prabhupada, no. They should be trained up. Sense enjoyment means not advanced in Krishna consciousness. As soon as one is advancing in Krishna consciousness, his sense enjoyment spirit will be reduced. That is the test, which means more devotion means less taste in this material world. Bhakti pareshanu bhavo viraktir. Canto 11, chapter 2, text 42, Srimad Bhagavatam states that the test is on how you are advancing in Krishna consciousness is proportionate diminishing of sense enjoyment, says Prabhupada. That is the test. Just like cure of the disease means diminishing the fever or the temperature, this is the test. Now the devotee continues to ask, but what if this material fever does not diminish? What if our taste in this material world to enjoy better clothes and better food and all other sources of enjoyment, what if the spirit does not diminish? Now look at Prabhupada's answer. Oh, then he should try to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Instead of 16 rounds, one should chant 64 rounds. That is the only way. 16 rounds is the minimum. Otherwise, Haridas Thakur would chant 300,000 names every day. So Haridas Thakur chanted 300,000 names, meaning 64 rounds is 1 lakh holy names. 100,000 names of Krishna. You see, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It is 16 names. So if you do the math again, 64 rounds is 1 lakh holy name. So 3 lakh or 300,000 means 3 times 64. Haridas Thakur chanted 192 every day. So Prabhupada is saying, continued. So you have to increase. That is the only remedy. If one has got determination, he will make progress without any trouble. That determination is very difficult. I must be fully Krishna conscious. This is determination. Drida vrataha. Now another instance, Prabhupada is writing a letter to Indira and Ekayani San Francisco, 17th December 1967. I am very glad to learn that you are chanting 48 rounds every day. Actually, it is all right that one chants 48. Even better, 64. So if one is able to increase from 16 up to 64, that is very good. You fix up your rounds. Try to increase but never decrease it. Another praman, another proof. Prabhupada's letter to Hamsa Duta Prabhu, Hawaii, 23rd March 1969. Yes, it is very good if you can chant 64 rounds every day. That is very nice if you can do that. Another proof. Letter to Bhakti Jana, Los Angeles, 12th February 1968. I shall advise you again to chant always, increasing the count. Namely, 16 rounds is generally prescribed, but for the time being, you can stop all other activities and increase the chanting to 64 rounds. So you see, now COVID, all our activities have been shut down. So increasing the chanting to 64 rounds. Now Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam purport, Canto 4, Chapter 24, Text 70 purport. That is the instruction given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Sikshashtakam, verse 3. Kirtaniya Sada Hari. The holy name of the Lord should be chanted 24 hours a day. Therefore, in this Krishna consciousness movement, we request the devotees to chant at least 16 rounds on their beads daily. Actually, one has to chant 24 hours a day. Just like Haridas Thakur, who was chanting Hare Krishna 300,000 names. Indeed, we have no other business. Chaitanya Charitamrit, Ante Leela, chapter 3, text 137, purport. For Prabhupada. Surrender is the ultimate instruction in the Bhagavad Gita, but for one who cannot surrender to the lotus feet, it is better to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra constantly. I repeat, constantly. The word constantly has been focused always. Kirtaniya Sada Hari. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. The word Sada, Nityam, Satatam all means constant. So in this way, Prabhupada continues explaining about 64 rounds. The Nectar of Devotion now. Nectar of Devotion class, Brindavan, Radha Damodar Temple, 20th October 1972. Just like we have asked our students to finish 16 rounds minimum every day. 16 rounds is nothing. In Vrindavan, there are many devotees chanting 64, even 120 rounds like that. So 16 rounds is the bare minimum. Because I know in the Western countries it is difficult to finish 64 rounds every day. Therefore, minimum 16 rounds, and that must be finished. Letter to Purushottama, Mumbai, 23rd October 1973. Because we have got many duties, text missing. We have minimized the amount to 16 rounds. Otherwise, text missing. Minimum is 64, but Western country, text missing. So 16 rounds must be executed minimum. Now, Nectar of Instruction, verse 5 purport. The Krishna consciousness movement prescribes 16 rounds daily because people in the Western countries cannot concentrate for long periods while chanting on beads. Therefore, the minimum number of rounds is prescribed. However, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada used to say that unless one chants at least 64 rounds of japa, he is considered to be fallen. According to this calculation, practically each one of us is fallen. But because we are trying to serve the Supreme Lord with all sincerity and without duplicity, we can expect the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Patita Pavan, the deliverer of the fallen. Now, last two proofs. Srila Prabhupada on the morning walk, Bombay, November 10, 1975. Lokanath Maharaj and Prabhupada are speaking. Lokanath Maharaj. Some devotees have fixed different number than 16 as the minimum. Some are chanting 25 minimum every day. Prabhupada, yes, it should be increased. Lokanath Maharaj, is it recommended for our ... Prabhupada, but don't decrease. Don't decrease, only increase. Therefore, one number is fixed. At least this much one should do. That is 16 rounds. Lokanath Maharaj, you are recommending 16 as the minimum, but some devotees are choosing 20 as the minimum. Prabhupada, so who stops? Who forbids? Who says don't do it? Lokanath Maharaj, so they can chant? Prabhupada, yes, that is wanted. Because you cannot do it, we have fixed minimum. Otherwise, asankyata, no limit. Now, the final praman for today, second last. The Hare Krishna Explosion, page 63 by Hayagriva Prabhu, Palace Press, 1985. Now that you have beads, Swamiji said the next morning, you should all chant 64 rounds every day. 64 rounds? To pronounce each word of the mantra distinctly, we require 5 minutes to chant a round. 64 rounds will take over 5 hours. Impossible, we said. We'll never have the time. All right, Swamiji says 32 rounds. Impossible, we say. We'll never be able to do it. That's way too much. All right, Swamiji said. 16 rounds, minimum, no less. Now, finally, Tamal Krishna Maharaj's diary, June 10 entry. Many years ago, Srila Prabhupada was chanting 64 rounds, but then gradually less because of traveling and preaching. Until a number of years, it was 16 minimum. So in this way, we understand that by chanting more, we are actually fulfilling the mood of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada has said we should chant more. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur chanted 10 years in Navadvip before he started the Gaudiya Math. He chanted continuously 3 times 64, 192 every day for 10 years. And in this way, he showed by practical example before preaching how he empowered himself. Also, Srila Prabhupada, 10 years at Radha Damodar temple, constant chanting and seva, and then preaching explosion. So once the temples open up and we have so many services, maybe we'll not be able to do 64. Maybe yes, maybe no. Because at that time our preaching, our outreach becomes more prominent because Prabhupada gave us as a preaching movement. So when the temples open up, the congregation programs, the home programs, at that time we focus on 3 things. We focus on ourselves being Krishna conscious. We focus on that time connecting others to be Krishna conscious. And 3, maintaining those who are already devotees. These 3 things we focus at that time. But now when there's total lockdown and everything is closed down, we should not be lazy. The service that we can do the most is chant the holy name. So we should try to chant 64 rounds. There are so many devotees chanting around the world. I'm telling you very honestly. One family in Australia is chanting, the Prabhuji is chanting 68 and the Mataji is chanting 88 every day during the lockdown. Because they're chanting. They have a little child, but they're chanting. His neighbor is chanting way more than that. So in this way, so many devotees, they are chanting 64, even in America. In fact, now in this home that I'm there in, I'm living in, Prabhuji chants 80 rounds every morning. He's a doctor, married with 2 children. He's a Bhakti Vriksha leader for over 7 Bhakti Vrikshas and very empowered speaker and virtual Hari Katha, so many classes. But then he's doing 80 rounds every morning. Wakes up and starts chanting. So therefore, as we conclude today, as it's already time up over an hour, I want to give a few tips how we can chant the holy name attentively and increase the count so that we feel inspired. First and foremost, chanting the holy name, if we want to chant more, we have to be convinced. We have to be determined that I want to do it, convinced that I really need it. I have committed so many sins in my past. Others may succeed with 16 rounds. It's not that we are putting down someone who's chanting 16 rounds. 16 rounds is the minimum Prabhupada gave us. So anyone who's chanting is glorious. But we should think he can make spiritual advancement. He can burn down all his karma. He can get Krishna at 16 rounds, but I cannot. Why? Because I'm way more sinful. I have committed so many sins. I have eaten meat. Like that, everyone should think. I've eaten meat. I've done abominable things. You don't have to loudly say what they are, but in the mind, we should remember all the mistakes we have made. So we should be convinced that others can get back home, back to Godhead in 16, but I cannot. Everyone should think like that. So in that way, we will stay humble even after chanting 64 and not get proud that I'm chanting more. I really need the medicine. When the fever is not coming down, the dosage is increased. Someone who is having 104 fever is not proud. Oh, you have only 101. I have 104. That's not a matter of pride. So if we have more anarthas, we need higher dosage. That's one. We need conviction. We need determination. I'm going to do it. Point number 2. The preparation for the 64 rounds starts the day before. We rest early at night and we wake up early to start our chanting. Preferably, we start chanting at 4 o'clock. Even better if we start chanting earlier. Prabhuji here, whom I was mentioning about, he starts chanting at 3 o'clock. He wakes up, I think, at 2:50 or 2:55 and starts chanting at 3 o'clock. Another friend of mine called Ramakrishna Prabhu, he chants 2 lakhs every day without fail. And he's working a full-time IT job. He's, I believe, working for IBM, lives in Pune with his wife, and he's chanting every day. So, especially during the lockdown. So he's also chanting at 3 o'clock. So early morning chanting, and we should capitalize on the time between 3 and 8, 3 and 7 at least. You go straight, you just sit and chant there. We may take a break in the middle for Mangalarti and other things real quick, but then we come back and we continue chanting. This is the second tip. Third tip, the louder you chant, the more tired you get when you're chanting a long stretch or more numbers. So keep the chanting very soft because it's early morning, it's just us. We can have earplugs so that we hear ourselves. We chant very softly. And we chant, it's a fast, soft murmur. We can chant loudly also, we can chant slowly also, but it's just that the vocal cords will get a little overworked. So we chant very soft. It's like a murmuring sound, but it's very fast. Very fast so that we hear as fast as we hear, and very soft so only we hear. It's not like a public kirtan. Traditionally in temples we have loud chanting for accountability, that everyone's chanting. Otherwise someone can just sit there for like an hour or two and say I'm done. But for accountability we chant loudly. And also if you're chanting 16 rounds, 2 hours of loud chanting is okay. But if you want to chant like 64 or 80 rounds every day during the lockdown, then soft chanting, whispering. This is the third point. Fourth point, most importantly, you don't take breaks. The mind will say, oh, please, let's stop. You can do it during the day also. No, we go as far as we can. Even on the treadmill, when you're running on the treadmill, the heart will be pumping. The body will say, enough, let's just press the stop button. But then you just go through that bridge. Once you cross, then you can go farther. It's just a portion. So we just tell ourselves, no, I'm not going to get up. If you feel the best is to sit and chant. If you feel sleepy, we stand up. If you still feel sleepy, we walk. And if you still feel sleepy, then we sleep because we are sleep deprived. But the best thing is to sit and chant without interrupting. We just sit there, soft chanting, fast chanting, preferably eyes closed even. And as we are chanting, with our finger, we pull our beads, the counter beads down, and we're chanting. We're just hearing. We don't want anything else. It's like we're put in a box with the holy name. And for hours every day, 4 or 5 hours, we're just sitting and chanting. Oh, that feeling is something else. Is really something else. And in this way, point number 5, if possible, we read more about the glories of the holy name, prayers to the holy name, verses glorifying the holy name. And the more we speak about the holy name, the taste for the holy name will rise. We have to be convinced that we want to do it. And if you try, you can chant. Sometimes, traditionally, we chant like 8 rounds an hour when it's very loud. But when you chant soft and fast, you can even chant up to 10, 11 rounds an hour. So in this way, it just takes about 5 hours of chanting, 5-6 hours of chanting to get to 64. So in the morning, so you finish like 4 hours straight, 5 hours straight. Then you're done with like 55 rounds before the world even starts working. Before 8 o'clock in the morning, you're done with 55 rounds. You can take like an hour break in the afternoon to nap. But if you can sleep by 9:30 and start chanting by 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 to 7 or 3 to 8 is the best time to just sit and chant. And you see on our counter beads, you have 20 beads. I don't know where my bead bag is. Otherwise I would have shown, I think it's in the other room. But anyway, you have 20 beads. So generally we think, why do we have 20 beads? But it's not to be 20 straight. It's 4 on one side and 16 going this way. So you go zoom, 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 16 done, you move 1 bead. And then another 16 done, second bead. Another 16 done, third bead. Another 16 done, 4 beads. So these 4 beads are meant to count 116, 216, 316, 416. And these 16 are to count the number of rounds in each set. So in this way, by practice only, we can do it. We should be convinced and we should chant. Remember to have a bottle of water next to you so that we don't parch out too much. So having said that, I want to thank everyone for kindly participating in this webinar, one-day webinar or virtual Harikatha discussion. I want to inspire everyone to be fired up for tomorrow's 64-round day. And not just tomorrow, chant as much as possible for as many days to come So that when the temples open up, when you make garlands also the tongue will move. When you're cooking also the tongue will move. And when we preach also, it's in the mood of compassion that, oh, may he also start chanting. May he also start chanting. In this way, Nitai and Haridas Thakur preached that may everyone start chanting the holy name. So in this way, we should empower ourselves so that we can indirectly empower others. This life is worth only as much as we chant. Nishwasa nahi vishwaso kada ruddho bhavishyati kirtaniya mato balyat harer namaiva kevalam. We don't know when our last breath will be. Nishwasa, when we go short of breath, nahi vishwaso. We don't know when that will come. Kada ruddho bhavishyati, when our life air will be stopped. Therefore, kirtaniya mato balyat. One should constantly chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I really want to thank all the devotees for kindly participating. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So please everyone kindly promise Krishna and your Guru Dev on your altar that you will increase your chanting and empower oneself to do much more so that we empower others also. You see, when you have to shoot an arrow, the more behind you take the arrow, the farther it goes. So during this lockdown time, we go behind to work on ourselves so that when it opens up, we can contribute more to society, personally and collectively. Thank you so much. Harinam Prabhu ki Jai.